I think the other factor, I mean, like, I think time is obviously an issue, and we are all busy. But it's also, I think, about how you deal with fluid ideas. Like, we knew what we were doing in every rehearsal, I think. But we knew that we were working with extremely fluid things.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite funny that you thought that you would, because although we did have, we've always had concrete ideas that we've talked about, and we've discussed them day in, day out for how long we have. But that train is moving, and those tracks can diverge.
And I like fluidity of creative ideas can just take up as much time and energy as there is. So I think it's a really, for me, it's a really interesting and probably kind of never-ending question of how you communicate fluid ideas, or how you share fluid ideas, or whether you can structure them in ways that are communicable. Like, for instance, in the position that we were in, where our minds were kind of constantly buzzing, and your minds were constantly buzzing, but from a completely different perspective, and there wasn't a framework for how you mesh those two together, aside from the piece at the end. But
But it's also a process for us as well, because one of the things that we've discovered is quite often when we're kind of working through the process of these pieces, we kind of start here and we kind of travel across each other's kind of paths there, and then go back to there, and kind of come back and eventually sort of do that ourselves. So,
yeah, but it was nice watching that happen. It was great. So bewildering.
But I mean, it's one of the things that I like about, one of the things that is very important to me about working with Elizabeth, one of the things that I think is very important for us working with you as kind of really our ideal collaborators in the couple of things we've just done, is that it is actually a proper collaboration. If anything, we would have, if we'd been able to, we probably would have got even more feedback from you, and even more kind of generative ideas, and because a lot of the feedback that you gave us directly instantly directly influenced directions that we were going in. And you were very good at giving us kind of quite specific feedbacks on certain things, which was very helpful.
Actually that. Come on.
Yeah, well, around which
was very useful.
Also, like when you said, right, we've got a choice of two things, and we just can't decide. That one.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, I don't know, you guys do a lot of collaboration, you work with a lot of different people. But there's a lot of times when the word collaboration is used, and what that actually means is I'm at the top of the tree, and you're working with me, and I'm interested in your feedback, but it's my show, and eventually it's my decision. And I don't mind working that way, but I've never felt particularly fulfilled what I want to do in terms of what the idea of a collaboration is. And I think the work that Elizabeth and I have been doing, and the work that you've had in that, has really been one of the first times that I felt that I was close to kind of like having the collaborative experience that I really want to have.
That's really great, yeah. And I think it's funny because I just thought of ourselves for a second as this trumpet and violin duo who come in and play and stuff, and that's just not what we are.
No.
And I don't think you would have ever written a piece on such a large scale piece and thought, I don't think we need a trumpet player and a violin player to stand around sort of improvising, but it's not that, it's about all the stuff that goes before it, and that idea that we can make this a really good collaboration.
We did feel like you guys were incredibly generous.
Well, I think the idea is that generosity goes always. Everybody, we were very generous with us sitting there and going, well, what happens now if you perhaps sing and play detuned microphone?
That was a bad moment.
Can we talk about that? Because I'm really interested in that, because that was quite another unique situation that we found ourselves in. So the first time we kind of got in a room to do sound exploration, and you kind of said, right, we haven't really written for trumpet very much. we're interested in these sounds. Can you do this? And obviously, being flautist, you've got a good sense of the wind.
You have a good sense of the wind.
Good sense of the wind. And it was like, right, can you make this sound? Okay, what can you do this? And some of it worked, some of it didn't work, and we just laid out loads of sounds and recorded them. And then it went from there. I think that's actually a really refreshing, open way of doing it. Because a lot of composers wouldn't admit to not having written much for that instrument, because it's some sort of shame. So you found out the sounds that you liked, that I could make, and the ones you didn't like, and then went from there. And that developed a language, which I feel...
It was always going to be possible.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. But also was different to how I normally played, or how we played in that, just a few weeks before.
And I think, to be fair to Gemma, it sort of, I'm not sure I would have admitted to either of you if I hadn't written for violin before. I would because I think, I don't know, but I think violin is a more familiar instrument for a lot of composers to try for than trumpet. So in some ways, from the beginning, what we were asking Gemma to do was reinvent the violin according to what we thought we wanted to do with it. Whereas with you, where can we start?
Can we sound again?
Yes.
But I also think, I don't know how you, it's one of the nice things about having performer composers. And for me, the way we kind of work with you guys is how I like people working with me, that kind of open, exploratory, sonic kind of way. And it just kind of felt natural for us to do that. And it was quite nice that kind of we talked to each other and we were both kind of I wasn't sure if Elizabeth had got 3 trumpet concerti up her sleeves, yes or not.
I knew about the tone raps.
I mean, I kind of, we could just keep doing this, but because we've actually programmed other things here, we kind of probably have to say, should we take some questions?
Yeah. Okay.
To be honest, it would be great if both of you could come right up to the front, so that we can, because years of piccolo playing has left me with quite bad ear damage, so it's
one of my first reactions when I came across the show was that I visited Bath once before for the Gavin tour, and so it was very interesting to me that I come across this show called Ocean, and it's happening in this closed down empty swimming pool facility. So there was this major contradiction between the metaphor of the ocean and the space itself. So I just wanted to ask you about this whole injury and sound of that ocean and why you decided to use that and make it flat.
See, it's very funny that you asked that because you walked in almost exactly straight after we finished talking about that. But I think it's worth going over again. We kind of were using it metaphorically, but also kind of when we were first talking about the project, we were talking about all sorts of water interactions between humans and water. So there's kind of, threshold is something we talked about a lot, and the kind of thresholds of kind of human interaction with water. And you were saying earlier on, you want to talk about because we were talking a lot about crowds and individuals and kind of masses and bodies of water and masses and bodies of people. But I think Elizabeth should talk about the kind of social stuff that she was talking about earlier on.
I think the title became a way of metaphorically conceiving of how social groups engage with water and the conditions in which social groups engage with water. So, I mean, I think you've kind of floated the title first. I remember it being like a float of the title to see what we could do with it, partly because we needed to get a proposal together, and then that it just kind of stuck, and we kept finding things.
I have a bad habit of naming things too early, so I kind of, we needed a title, and I was thinking ocean, and the second time that I did that, Elizabeth was just like, no, we're going to wait, and I will tell you if I like that title or not.
But I still think it stands that, for me, it became a lot about how sort of crowds of people, what happens in crowds of people, how crowds of people engage with something that is often so restricted in accessibility. Like, so, the baths are a public place that were intended to be accessed by lots of people, but you don't get that kind of water in your home every day. You have to be in the presence of a lot of other people to access this particular social and physical phenomenon.
Which goes to swimming pools as well as being at the ocean. I spent quite a lot of holidays recently down on the coast of Cornwall, and there's a lot of kind of different, you were saying earlier on, and we were talking a lot about sort of perspective zoom. You can stand on a hill and see a massive people, but when you go down to the beach and you go into that crowd, actually that massive people is made up of smaller groups of people doing very different things, or even individuals, and kind of how you fit into that, and how kind of crowds work, and how crowds divide up into smaller elements, and then how that relates to kind of water use and things. Because at any one moment on the beach in St Ives, you might have people chucking balls to each other, or you might have a surf school, and then you'll have serious kind of sea swimmers kind of out just beyond that, and people doing kind of pedal boards and things like that. But actually what really struck me was that you found exactly the same thing when you looked at archival photos of Victoria Baths. You'd see photos where actually there were, if you looked at it from a distance, there was a group of people in the swimming pool. But actually when you saw that photo closer up, you saw that there was a group of people talking to each other on the side of the pool here, people swimming up and down the pool there, kids mucking about over there, and the building itself has that kind of feeling of a lot of people use it, but a lot of people use it for very different things. And kind of the gendered thing came in there as well. So, like men used the Turkish baths for business deals, women used it for community kind of socialising, or the way the wash house was used, or the way that the kind of, the wash house related to washing conditions and labour outside of things, and also things like some of the stuff that Elizabeth's going to talk about this more, but kind of the way that, do you want to talk about how the way that the garden will function versus the females and stuff like,
I can't.
Well, one of the things that we talked about a lot was how the Gala pool was being prioritised in everybody's memories versus the females pool, but actually how that also related to how it was actually being used at the time. Like, all the big galas were held in the male first class pool, and women had to traverse the whole of the baths to go and do stuff in that pool, often walking past kind of naked men in pool 2 or 10 and things like that. But,
yeah, I think that there's also some interesting, this is kind of really veering off from your original question, so we'll come back to that in just a sec, but kind of related to your restoration question from earlier, I think the kind of restoration and re-restoration concept is really relevant to that place. The amount of times, it's only not that much more than 100 years old, but the number of times that they have repurposed and restored or re-envisioned how they want to use the space.
Yeah, because that makes me think of when the second house moved to the right.
Right. Yeah.
and that happened to, I think all the pools at different times. Like, But we think of the second class pool because we've seen people doing bowls and stuff in there. It's been used as a sports hall. But they actually used to board up the garden pool quite a lot for the dances and things like that. And actually the garden pool was sometimes not used until summer, and they boarded it up and they used it for, and they only kept the second class and the females pool. But also the language changes as well, doesn't it? It's like John Cunliffe says things like, we never called it the females pool, it was called 3. Because at some point all the pools were desegregated, gender-wise.
But I think that kind of contributes to this sense that when you talk about restoration, unless you're really going extremely specific, you're kind of using it in a somewhat arbitrary way, because restoration happens on top of restoration on top of restoration. Please, please do.
I also mentioned audience feedback, so I was wondering if you could elaborate on that approach. And also because I was thinking about how the memories and some of them was used. I'm guessing they were from people who used the tools many years ago. So what would that mean for an audience to maybe know how they function? Because they've probably not seen it much now, so with that concern.
I think it was a bit of a concern. I think there's several parts to it, as always. I think so. With recordings, you mentioned one of our hopes was that we would maybe by chance draw some of the people that are actually featured in the archive into the space, so that we, as far as we know, everyone that was contactable, that was featured in the piece, was contacted and invited. They weren't.
Barry came up to me and said, I did get around to it.
That's right.
It's a shame. He said, I meant to, but other things came up.
Right. So that was one of the ways we had hoped maybe to get, not even, I don't think for me it was necessarily about getting feedback so much as just inviting.
Because they were positive.
Yeah.
Including family.
Including some family relations of mine, yes.
And in general, what kind of feedback do you see?
In general, it's been very positive for a start. I think what you said about people saying it's good, it's just so nice to be in the space is really true.
Something I thought was interesting was somebody arrived a little bit late. I mean, they didn't miss the start of the show, but they weren't there for the kind of ambling around preamble. But because of that, although she didn't miss any instructions, she felt like she had, because it was so free, the space was so fluid, people were kind of exploring things. But I think because she felt like she missed an introduction, she was then a bit confused for the whole.
Did she come in to the garden?
No, she came at the start of the show.
Okay.
I hadn't even started playing. Like, it was just, everybody was already there. And she wasn't sure if she was meant to explore space and look into people or not, what to do with this thing, what's the pedal about. But I think because she hadn't missed anything, but because of that arriving late, it was just really interesting to have a different mindset when you're around.
Yeah, I think one issue for us was we were always pretty interested in kind of keeping a mysterious element to the show. And I think we tried our best to strike the right balance with that, but it was kind of always going to be a variable in terms of how it was received because of what we were trying to do. So sort of not giving away which spaces they were going to be seeing and not, not having an explanation given out.
We realised that we were setting up a lot of narratives, but we opted to be able to break those narratives as well, so that you really felt like sometimes the voices of the baths were talking to you, or sometimes you were being talked to personally, or whatever.
And that we weren't prescribing how you should, or how we wanted you to experience the space or the piece.
And we were trying to avoid the kind of museum tour deal
Right.
as well.
Right.
We changed around a lot of what voices were going to be where because of an uncomfortableness about that. And also, I mean, I think it's something I was thinking about with people's reactions to the jars. I mean, I think there is a sense that you do want people to feel that they've been communicated with and take away concrete things. But then something that I also like as an audience member is I don't want to know, I want there to be some things that I don't quite understand, because those are the things that I'm going to maybe think about a little bit, you know. And trying to strike that balance, and you know, some people will go away and they'll be a bit unhappy because they want to understand everything immediately. And other people are a bit more like me and want to go away and think, well, there's that bit that I don't really understand, I want to, you know, think about it. So it's you know, you can't, everybody always says
The
this.
situation was like, to me it seemed like someone threw a stone from across at me and picked it up or something like that. But I saw some people who done it over and over and over and kept looking at it, probably wondering if it needs something. So, yeah, finally, did you look at any kind of, because I was just wondering if I've seen anything like this before, and the only thing I could think of was light and sound shows in historical buildings, and if you're in the original watch, you would sort of do sort of shadow play, and then someone would speak in a certain language, a certain tone, which would, you know, say a portion or a few authors. So, was there anything similar which you looked at, or was this completely something you went in and developed from the space itself?
There was definitely like one article I read that was hugely influential for me quite early on. I'm trying to remember the author, but it was an article about a Brazilian theater group that had created a show for Victoria Balance.
Well, I think their show was created for somewhere else and they brought it into Victoria Balance.
I think, yeah. But were there...
But it was another kind of similar, I think they reworked it.
They'd
for us,
had to completely
And it was
rework
site
it.
specific.
Yeah. And it was sort of theater performance art, I suppose. So, and the theme that they used, or the kind of key theme in their heads, was hysteria, and gendered interpretations of hysteria, the gender inherent in the concept of hysteria, the gender inherent in the creation of institutions, institutions that often deal with hysteria. So this, I came across this article that just really unpicked this piece. I'm happy to, I can pull it up and give you the, yeah. But it provided, for me, it provided another way into understanding how, or another way of looking at how you deal with the space and the significance of just being in space, and this significance of actions within space.
It also almost directly referenced some of the things that we were thinking about in terms of crowds and individuals and audiences and gendered audiences and things as well.
And gender is something I'm really interested in, generally speaking. So there's some kind of interesting references to feminist theory in there. So that was a big turning point for me. there were a couple of other things that I looked at that were influential, but much more indirectly, just to look at what other people have done in a space like that. For me was just important to figuring out what my role in making this piece was.
You were saying that you struggle with the justification of why you should do it.
Yeah.
So was there something which got you able to do it? Was it just Gavin said about that? Making it a process in which you engage with the space and
I think it resolves a lot through acknowledging that it's a process and acknowledging that you're in this situation where your job is to create, but you're kind of in the middle of a bunch of complicated contradictions and things. But I'm not sure it ever quite resolved for me. I think a little bit of me has resolved the fact that it will never be resolved, but not all of me.
It's something that's just there.
Well, I don't think it's something that you necessarily can resolve or should resolve, because you should have that ethical commitment to questioning that side of things the whole time anyway. And even performance doesn't, because people take different things from performance and experience in different ways. So, I think it's something that you should always be asking yourself. And it's probably good that it doesn't resolve. It kind of keeps a little ethical integrity to the work if you keep having to ask yourself those questions.
I mean, at some level, it spills out into other work too, though. I did find myself kind of questioning, why am I making any work for any space anymore? What am I, like, it didn't get overly existential, but it spills out.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, can I just give a slightly more general answer than Elizabeth gave? I think there's also a very long history of mixed media work in spaces like that. Work done by people like, we've watched a lot of Laurie Anderson recently, but there's, you look at, I kind of got into trouble earlier on talking about this, because I kept talking about theatre, and I meant different things by theatre than I think what you understood by what I meant by theatre. But there are people who you maybe use with an umbrella word like theatre, who work with, say, a mixture of text, sound, musicians, visuals, materials, who also work in site-specific ways, that really is a kind of genre of work that, because it kind of tends to be done by people who are often theatre directors or have a particular hat on their heads, it's not necessarily something that is pulled together as a kind of frame of reference. But certainly for me, there are a lot of kind of things like that that I've been to or read about, or in some cases been part of, that fed into that. So there is a kind of more general history of making that kind of work with that kind of mixed element in. That's probably worth exploring.
Well, as a visual anthropologist, you must come across.
Yeah, I have come across. It's just that probably the work that I looked at was not site-specific in this kind of sense. We are asked to look at these media projects a lot, and some of us are making ones for someone. But I was just wondering what kind of inspirations you might have had, because it's I personally looking more at film for my project, so I'm not this one, but a lot of my classmates will be making these media projects, and it would be worth asking them what they've been looking at as well.
There was originally a lot more film designed for Ocean than we actually ended up being able to use for various reasons. So it was partly active decisions about not imposing extra visuals on the space, but also partly practical things as well. So,
And there are a lot of sort of sound people, lack of a word. I suppose it was sound artists that that's their main focus. You told me about. There are a couple of people that you follow that will do things like just go into a building and take sound of the building.
But that was done in Victoria Bats. Jess Riley French did. There's another sort of sonic visual artist named Jess Riley French that was quite influential for me. And I've been following his work actually for a while, and I just found that he had done something in Victoria Bats, which was kind of a cool discovery.
Since you mentioned this love not imposing extra visual materials, since this was a collaboration with musicians performing live, and when did you decide to end the collaboration, and why was it, say, why not just live music, or why not just recording sound? Why you decided to have both?
I think both of us, especially now, conceive of sound as a mixed thing. So I think for us, it's kind of a normal vocabulary now to include both. That is something that was already, we'd done some work on another big project that involved live sound with these guys and electronic sound.
I think it's kind of natural to work in. There are certain things that you can do with recorded sound, particularly kind of actually quite evocative, memory or historically based things that are quite hard to do with acoustic instruments, and there are things that are quite hard to do in electronic sound that you can do quite easily. And also there's kind of things like human agency is very important. And that's something that live performers can bring you, but something that you can also play around with kind of recorded voice as well. So
that's become a focus for me. That's actually, that's what one of my performers will be demonstrating in like the next piece, or one of the next pieces in this is how embodiment influences perception of sound and disembodiment, and the theater of a physical performing presence that is sometimes taken for granted, I think, in live music context.
We're now 10 minutes into Rob's actual rehearsal, actual discussion time. So I think probably we should take 5 minutes to wrap up, but I think probably we have to start to. So if anybody has, so I know if you've got another question you'd like to ask, or Rob another question, or anything you guys would like to say, but I think to avoid us getting hideously behind.
One comment, it's not really a question, but it's kind of come up at various points, is about how the acoustic acting as like an intimacy with looking